Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, the program for anyone passionate about cars in Australia. In each episode we uncover the significant factors that made our feature car stand out on Australian roads and racetracks.
Stay with us as we take an up-close look at an owner's example of our feature car, and we get the latest market advice from the Shannons auctions team. Right now, the widely acclaimed sedan which brought German big car quality to the small car class, the Mercedes-Benz 190E.
From the moment I slipped behind the wheel of the Mercedes-Benz 190E in early 1985, I knew it was an entirely new type of small car. Even that adjective small needs to be calibrated, because the W201 190E was not small as a Corolla is small, and at almost 4.5 metres in length it could be classed as medium. But for a luxury car in that price range, it was certainly small. The W201 was engineered to feel exactly like a larger Mercedes in terms of quality and the driving ownership experience. The same could not be said, for example, of the 318i in comparison with its larger sibling, the extravagant buffalo hide trimmed 735i flagship. The 190E was the first expression of a new theme that would be seen the following year in the mid-size W124 models. Mark, did the 190E offer a new direction for Mercedes-Benz in motorsport?
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, back in the late 1970s, Mercedes-Benz was heavily into rallying with those big V8 powered 450 SLC coupes, real brutes of cars. They were very well suited to long distance endurance type events in like Africa and South America. But in terms of traditional forest rallying with its much shorter, tighter stages, those cars were unsuitable. They wanted something smaller and more agile, lighter. Along comes the 190. Looked to be the perfect replacement, but then there was suddenly a change of strategy, which I'll expand on a bit later on.
In the mid-1980s, few among the cognoscenti doubted that Daimler-Benz built the best sedans in the world. Some of us loved the Jaguar XJ Series 3 and maybe the 735i, but for quality, Mercedes was the obvious choice. It was an era when Daimler-Benz could do no wrong. Even the four-cylinder engine's lack of sparkle barely seemed to be an issue because this was a Mercedes-Benz that could fit into a Camira-sized parking spot. The Daimler-Benz idea of luxury in those days was austere. The 190E had vinyl seats, while rivals had cloth or leather, absurdly known as MB Tex. This was ultra high-grade vinyl that would last forever, very similar to the Morocide used in the HD and HR Holden Premiers. The 190E used the familiar 85 kilowatt 2.3 litre four-cylinder engine with automatic transmission. A 5-speed manual followed, but the take-up rate was low. Steering, handling and ride were all superb. It had a brilliant new multi-link rear suspension. Work on the W201 had begun in 1974, so it's easy to see how Daimler-Benz spent a fortune in developing what was undoubtedly the finest small car the world had yet seen. Mark, is the 190E celebrated as a racer in the same way as, say, the BMW M3?
Well, not in a global sense, like that legendary little BMW, but certainly it was a hero car in Germany, and interestingly, it also wrote its own chapter in Bathurst history. Along with Ford and General Motors, Mercedes-Benz shares the rare distinction of winning the great race at both Phillip Island and Bathurst. The Island victory in 1961 came courtesy of Harry Firth and Bob Jane in a 220 SE Finney, but the revered German marque had to wait almost 3 decades for its first and only Bathurst win, thanks to the 190E Cosworth. It was originally planned as a rally car in the late 1970s, when the car to beat was Ford's mercurial Mark II Escort RS, which combined a ferocious Cosworth 2-litre engine with a small, light and agile chassis. Mercedes-Benz followed suit with the compact 190E as its starting point, powered by a Cosworth-designed dual overhead cam 16-valve version of the 190E's 2.3-litre 4. However, the arrival of Audi's turbocharged all-wheel drive Quattro in 1980 prompted Mercedes-Benz to go touring car racing instead. In this guise, the 190E Cosworth underwent several evolutions, with the definitive 2.5-litre Evo 2 delivering multiple titles in Germany's premier touring car series, the DTM, in the early 1990s. John, it's interesting that a German marque used a British firm like Cosworth to design an engine for them. It's not something you'd normally see.
Well, it's a great tribute to a British firm at the
Sure
time when British Leyland was basically doing its best to trash the British motor industry's reputation. A fantastic tribute, and quite bewildering really that they wouldn't have thought with the might of Mercedes-Benz they'd do it themselves.
I think it's probably shows that example where when they were developing the car, the rally package, they were looking at the Escort and saying, well, it's about 2 litre, it's 4-cylinder, it's got a Cosworth engine, and
we'll have those too. Why have what he's having? Yeah,
it seemed to be that way. So It was an interesting time, wasn't
it? Indeed.
Yeah. The 190E Cosworth could not reach the dizzy heights of outright success in Australia that it enjoyed at home, as local Group A racing with our turbocharged imports and big Aussie V8s differed greatly from the German scene. This ensured it could only be a class contender. The Cosworth-powered Merc in original 2.3-litre form made its first Australian appearance in 1986, when Bob Jane backed a 2-car team for a 3-race program, including the Bathurst 1000. Despite quality preparation and driving talent, the German cars were generally outclassed by local teams during a rather lacklustre campaign. Even so, they soon found a new Australian owner in industrialist Lyndon Reithmuller, who teamed with sports sedan racer Phil Ward to campaign the cars in selected races, including Bathurst. Although Ward would later import one of the ex-DTM Evo 2s, his greatest achievement with the Cosworth cars was winning Class B in the 1990 Bathurst 1000 with multiple winner John Goss, a win which also provided the closing chapter of Stuttgart's 3-decade history in the Great Race. Remember to join the Shannons Club, where you can connect with other enthusiasts around the country.
Hi, my name's Ken. This is a 1990 model 190E Mercedes-Benz that belongs to my father. It's completely a stock car, hasn't had any modifications, standard wheels, standard trim, and it's got all its service books and history. The interior's nice clean blue leather, which is quite a rare colour for this combination. Quite a few nice little features for a car of its age. It has the 2.6 litre large 4-cylinder engine, the largest 4-cylinder that they put into this model. My father, ever since I was a child, always wanted a Mercedes. My uncle kept the car for about 10 years, and then my father purchased it after that. It gets around nicely, it's an economical car, drives perfectly. My father enjoys driving the car. I think his favourite thing of it, so many people ask him to buy it. He gets quite a kick out of it that, he takes it to the shops and people look at the car and they quite often ask him to purchase it, especially since we put it on the club plate. It's been insured with Shannons for a long time. Even when my uncle owned it previously, it was insured with Shannons. My son loves cars. He loves going to car shows with me. Anything I do with cars, he's into. Future plans for the car, it'll stay with my dad until he passes it on to one of the children or the grandchildren.
Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borobon is here with a market update on the Mercedes-Benz 190E. Welcome, Christoph.
Welcome, mate.
Hello.
Interesting car this, the first compact executive car from Mercedes-Benz. Where does it sit in the overall pecking order of Mercedes collectibles in Australia? It's a bit of an oddball, isn't it?
It is. We don't get to see many come on the market at all, I think, and for the rare examples that do, and it's mainly in the classifieds.
Okay.
I look at it as nearly the first of the C classes.
Yes.
Nearly. That's what it.
It was the W201,
That's
and the
right.
first of the C classes was the W202, and it
Yes.
was really like Mercedes was putting their toe in the water, more than their toe, their whole leg in the water,
right.
but it was a big exercise for them. The huge thing about it was they made this car that was really small, quite a compact car, a bit like a Chimera, if you like, but it felt and looked and drove just like an
a
S-Class.
big car. Yeah, exactly.
The German build quality.
It was,
I mean, that's what it was.
But the 318i, for example, BMW wouldn't really compare that with the 7 Series, but the 190E was the first small car in the world to really import that feeling of the big luxury car into a compact car, and that's why they could charge a small fortune for it and sell it standard with vinyl upholstery, which they called MB Tex.
MB Tex, I love that.
Yeah. You could get leather, but that cost you another fortune on top of the asking price. So that was the 190E.
That's right.
2.3 litre 4-cylinder engine, automatic only when it first came out. Enthusiasts cried out for the manual. Eventually, Mercedes-Benz Australia obliged, and very, very few of those cars were sold.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the majority was automatics. We got a handful of
But
manuals.
that's the luxury market.
That's it. And then we went to the bigger 2.6 litre engine, which is not too many of them came out.
2.6 litre 6-cylinder car, which was really a premium, a very expensive car. Very, very few of those.
And if
sold.
we're talking about collectible 190s, the Cosworth cars, we never got them in Australia, unfortunately. But in terms of desirability and collectability, if you get a 2.3 or a 2.5 Evo out of Germany or somewhere, that would be quite a car, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Again, there's an example of the stuff that we've missed out on getting here in Australia, and I think that's what put the 190 on a map. Those
really
Cosworths were, it was quite an incredible car, and very much favoured by a lot of the old F1 drivers. I know, Ed Senna had some great, tests in 190 Cosworth. So.
Interesting times in the Australian car market, and the 190E really quite focused it because it was an expensive car.
It sure was.
With MB Tex.
Yeah.
Then they had the luxury car tax, remember that? And Mercedes were able to, I think it was 20 grand or something they took off the price and bought out the 180E.
The 180,
with a 1.8 litre engine, no tachometer, no ABS brakes, and plastic wheel covers.
Yeah.
And they sold that under the luxury tax threshold, and they sold heaps of them.
Yes.
You could get that as a manual or an auto. In a sense, that's really where the car belonged
This
in
is
the
amazing,
market.
though. Like the power of that, the badge.
Yeah,
If I can
absolutely.
get myself into a 1.8 absolute stripper,
But
I still want it.
people weighed up whether to buy that car or to buy a Holden Statesman. And a lot of them bought the Mercedes 180E and were very happy with it.
Isn't that interesting?
It was the badge value. I think the badge value came into it, wasn't it, with a lot of those buyers when they were looking at those cars.
Yes, that's right.
So in terms of the Australian available models, the 2.66 or what's the pecking order there?
You'd have to think the 2.66 was the favoured option, followed by the 2.34 cylinder. But again, trying to find a low mileage 190E today is near impossible.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of them were, well used, and I think that showed the reliability of the 190E model at the time.
Oh, look, they're immensely durable. I had a 180E and it was just the most solid car.
Yeah.
It's just so well built and such a lovely car on the open road.
Well, that suggests that you could probably get a good one, high mileage, but well looked after for reasonable money.
Yeah.
But if you can find that low mileage example around, that's been well maintained, all the original service books and the maintenance over the years, that's probably the one to go for.
Okay. And if
Great advice, and
Very good.
thank you for joining us,
problem at all,
Christoph. And remember, you can get all the latest auction news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like your own race image of the Mercedes 190, visit AutoPix, Australia's largest motorsport photo archive.
John, the 190E, it really is a credit to Mercedes-Benz as a brand that they could go in this completely different direction with a little 2.3 litre 4 and the market go with them with such massive enthusiasm. That's extraordinary, the power of that brand, I think.
They could sell a small car with vinyl seats at that absolute premium price and take people with them. That was the power of the brand. Now, it's interesting because at that time, the Audi 100 was just rewriting the rules for how cars would look to have a low coefficient of drag. So the Audi 100, which really should have been a world beater and set every designer in the world back to their drawing boards. We've got to copy that look. That car was completely overshadowed by the W201 Mercedes-Benz 190E, which had a good CD factor, but it wasn't setting a world record. It was just a complete encapsulation of Mercedes-Benz brand values in a smaller car.
And also build quality. I mean,
Build
when
quality.
anyone talks about a 190E, the solidity of when you close the door, the feel, when you, it had the big car
It absolutely
feel
did.
in the small car side.
More than some big cars like the Audi 100 had.
very
It was a more
impressive.
solid car, yes.
Yeah, real turning point, wasn't it?
Indeed it was. Well, we hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the revolutionary Mercedes 190E, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.